Hello, and welcome back to a podcast. This podcast with Talo and Tano.
Yes, Otano.
We are out here.
We do be present.
Yes, sir. And today we are going to be talking about our favorite 10 albums of all time. So that's not necessarily what we think are the best or greatest 10 albums of all time.
By any means.
Yeah, by any means. Let's make that very clear as we start off. We do not think that, any of our favorite deserve to be considered to be some of the best albums of all time, just personally.
I think I have one.
I think I have one as well.
Just one that I think should be considered one of the greatest albums of all time.
I might have two. But, anyway, we'll get into that before we start jumping ahead. So how we're going to kind of format this is we're going to go through our list, and we have actually ranked them. So from 10 to 1, we're going to talk about our favorite personal albums of all time, and just kind of riff off of it as it goes, and we'll kind of slowly build towards what are our favorite albums for each of us respectively. So Taylor has put together a list of 10 songs plus some honorable mentions, as have I. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. We'll hopefully talk a little bit about each album and what they mean to us and why they are on our list. Spend some time with each one. But it should be a lot of fun. As we've talked about before, we love music, so we'll probably talk about it a lot. And this is just the first one that we thought was kind of a good starting point.
The show.
Yep.
Before I start on my list, I'm very surprised with what my list ended up being. I really tried to pick albums that I love the whole entire album. It not just love most of it, or there's 4 or 5 amazing songs and the rest are kind of okay. All of these 10 albums, I love the whole entire album. So that ruled out a lot of projects that I started with initially, when I first made my list.
Interesting.
There were a lot of albums that had 4 or 5 amazing songs, and the rest are just kind of okay. I've ruled all of those out. So and now as I say that, I feel it's gonna make my list even worse, because I think a lot of people are gonna think this is just a really dumb list, but these are my favorite albums. Coming in at number 10. I don't even want to say.
Before you jump into it, I'm glad you clarified that, because that is the point of us doing albums at this point, not our favorite artists or songs, because some artists have amazing song collections but not great albums, right?
Very true.
So this is almost a reflection of the true piece of work that is an album, saying that it's a really great album.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with Kanye because of that.
Fair enough.
Personally, I don't feel like he's put out a whole project that's amazing across the board. He has albums that the production is amazing. He has albums that lyrically are amazing. And are just hit or miss with the other. Most of the albums, I feel 50% of the album, but the other 50% carries it, bro, and does so well. So I don't know, it's hard.
I think I'm more biased towards him, and spoiler, you will see him on my list. But I mean, I get that point for sure.
Yeah, and literally, I feel like such an idiot having said that, because now, coming in at number 10, having just talked so much crap on all of Kanye's albums, coming in at number 10, I have American Teen by Khalid. Which I realize is kind of dog water to be
I'm sorry, that was very disrespectful of me to just laugh like that on your first submission.
Bro, there's a couple
not
on this.
What I was expecting at all.
There's a couple on this that are just oh, I don't know. Okay, here's what I will say about American Teen. So, American Teen was one of the first albums that I discovered by myself and listened to the whole thing, like, by myself, you know. It was never like, I don't know, there's a lot of like older albums by like really amazing bands that unfortunately I did not have, like, I didn't get, like, it was not like a magical thing for me to listen through the album,
Right,
you know,
right.
because I'd heard most of, if not all of the songs from the album just in different order.
As singles mixed up in like some random playlist or something
For
like
sure,
that.
for
Yeah.
sure.
That makes sense.
So this is my first album that I like sat down and listened through completely on my own, that nobody else in my family had ever listened to, and even like my friends like hadn't listened to, because it was just, I was just really fortunate to stumble upon it when it had just released.
Yeah.
Before it like really took off. The album will always put me in a good mood. It is such a feel-good album. I love, I feel like that was one of the first projects to really bring back that kind of new wave sound, as far as like really heavy like synth layered stuff, with heavy R&B influence, with the melodies and vocals and everything like that.
Definitely.
And even just like the way that the subject matter was presented is very R&B. And we've now started to see a lot more of that recently. Like, both of the Weeknd's last albums have been that.
A lot of that. And the Weeknd is huge right now. It has been for the last several years.
Did the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah.
Lots of people say it was like one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows
in a long time.
And it's really, personally, I feel like, because he did like really find a nice sweet spot with that Khalid. I mean, is what I'm talking about on American Teen. It was, because when it did actually come out, that dropped maybe in like April, I think, and that was just, I feel like everyone
of 17.
Yeah, everyone played that whole summer, man.
Yeah, Lexi loved it. I remember Lexi loving. I remember almost. Sorry to take over your.
No, you're totally fine, man.
Like, I remember feeling like, because it was so different comparatively to what had been the norm of like pop music for such a long time. For like 10 years, it was relatively unchanged. Obviously changing, but not, if that makes sense. And like you said, very synth forward, very almost 80s, and just a completely different vibe. And I didn't like it at first. It took me a while to warm up to it, which, I mean, now I do think it's one of the very influential albums of the last 5 years or so, for how music is today.
For sure. The other thing that I think is really unique about him just as an artist is he's like a baritone. You know, all of his stuff naturally just sits in a lower register, which is very uncommon for anything that's going to be like popular and sell really well.
Right. Very old-timey in that respect, going back like way back to old blues artists who had that kind of baritone.
For sure. But yeah, that was just real brief on why. I mean, I could go on with other stuff. Like, I love that album. It's always like
favorite tracks. Go.
Angels is probably my favorite on that. It's the only one that's actually not synth heavy. It's just him and a piano. I love that one. Let me pull it up. Actually, I need to pull these up as we're talking about them.
All good. I should have said something. I thought of that for my next one as soon as you started talking about yours.
Shot Down is amazing too. It's just there's so much like teenage angst in it without it being corny, you know?
Yeah,
There's
that's
just
a good way of putting it.
like the right amount of just like sad boy a little bit,
Yeah.
you know?
And it worked really well for our age group at the time.
Yes. Yes. Because I mean, we even saw like, I mean, kind of similar with that is another song that I just kind of throw in with this whole thing, especially because of the time period in the year, is the song Love off of Kendrick's Damn album.
Yeah.
It's like same vibe, you know,
Yeah, it is.
and singy, kind of just like, you know, like
Chill.
yeah,
Cheery, but not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Super super dope album. Production is amazing.
The production is really good on that album. You're right.
Like fantastic. It's all mixed really really well. And it does
Super crisp.
yeah. Even though a lot of it is looped, just because that's how music is today, there's so much between like verses and things where just randomly like another synth fill will be in just for like a bar or two, you know,
Yeah.
to keep it all like very intriguing throughout the whole album, which is awesome.
Yeah. For sure. Again, I apologize for laughing.
Dude, no, there's a few that you definitely
And your reasoning for it was really good. We'll get into it a little bit later on my list as well, but like, there's something to be said for listening to an album the first time right when it comes out, before everyone knows about the hits, everyone knows about what's really great about that album. Something about experiencing it for yourself and knowing that you discovered it in a way is like really powerful when it comes to music, I feel like.
For sure.
Dope.
All right, Tanner.
All right, yeah, 10 on my list. And the back, like the last few on my, out of my top 10 were really hard because they're really close to what would be like 11 to 13 as well, in terms of ranking my albums. But at number 10, I went with A Rush of Blood to the Head.
Very nice.
Coldplay. And
just quickly,
go ahead.
I have that as number 2. All 5. I have it as number 2.
Shoot, I'm sorry to take something so high on your list.
Dude, no, it's good. Let's
That's
talk
crazy.
about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it for sure. So I'll go first, and you take more time on it, definitely, considering it is at number 2.
Okay.
With it, I mean, that speaks a lot about Coldplay being on both of our list, top 10 of all time. Coldplay, just in general, not even specifically this album, but is, I mean, I hate saying it's like a Smith thing, loving Coldplay, because, I mean, everyone loved Coldplay. They're one of the biggest bands in the world over the last 20 years.
Oh,
when you
yeah.
think about
Easily.
But, I mean, just the way that they are, and the way that they were, especially their first 4-5 studio full-length albums, just like the music in general really speaks to me and you and our parents, and like heavily influenced us growing up. I mean, this album released in 2002, so that's before we could even comprehend liking and loving music. I mean, we're 3 years old at this point, right?
Yeah.
But into A Rush of Blood to the Head specifically, it was difficult for me to choose between this, X and Y I love a lot. Parachutes is great as well. Their first and third albums, this being their second, right? Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. And I chose this as my favorite out of the 3 of them, just because, I mean, you look at the track list.
No misses.
There are no misses on this album. It is almost the perfect album in terms of like alternative rock.
And the variety is incredible as well.
I mean, I go through literally every single one, but my favorites being, at 2 in my place is amazing. The drums and the guitar on this, the riff is immaculate.
Yeah.
The Scientist, which is probably the most popular track on it, is, I mean, how can you not love The Scientist? One of the most famous music videos in recent history that I can remember.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Really cool idea of him walking and singing, training himself. Chris Martin, the singer, training himself to speak backwards throughout the entire thing.
Yeah. Crazy.
Just, I mean,
Crazy.
nuts. Clocks, one of the most famous songs as well of Coldplay's discography. I love Warning Sign. Warning Sign is one of my favorites. It is so good.
Really good.
And then a rush of blood to the head, the title track, gets me in my feels every single time. I think I almost cry every single time I hear the song. And this wasn't ever an album for me where like I listened to all of these songs a ton growing up. I mean, Clocks and The Scientist in My Place were definitely ones that I listened to growing up. Some of the heavier ones on the back end, not as much, just because I mean you don't listen to that as much unless you're getting into it. Like my dad wasn't playing heavy songs for me called "The Rush of Blood to the Head" at 8 years old or whenever I was first introduced to this.
Right.
But going back in retrospect and being able to listen to this album, I mean, I absolutely love this. I listened to it again as I was making this list, and it just blows my mind how how almost perfect it is.
How freaking sincere the whole project is. You know?
I mean, Chris Martin absolutely kills it. His vocal performances throughout are just spot on.
Two I think really slept on tracks on this album are Green Eyes.
I'm glad you said that.
And Amsterdam.
Oh, I love Amsterdam. It's so raw.
So freaking good.
Yeah.
One thing, just on the topic of Green Eyes, one thing that Coldplay does really extremely well, which actually speaks to how good of musicians are and how little, not how little, but just how unimportant, like, actual theory is.
Music theory. Yeah.
Green Eyes is in a weird tuning for the guitar, which pretty much any Coldplay song, if there's an acoustic guitar, it's not in standard tuning.
Yeah.
Because it's just, this sounds kind of sick.
It sounds cool and kind of different. Let's do it.
Yeah. That's like so very like signature Coldplay as just weird tuning on a guitar.
That's true.
But yeah, Amsterdam, man, like just going through like the lyrics and just like I've just been reading them kind of while you've been talking. It's so good, man. It's so genuinely just such an amazing album.
Yeah.
I have never understood the album art though.
Yeah, me neither. I still don't get it.
I have never understood it.
I mean, it's very, when you look at it, it makes sense for the time, I think.
It totally does.
Kind of change of the, from 99 to 2000, like, that age of, like, weird kind of, it's all computers now, and these are weird things that we can do on the computer.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is cool, and it makes sense for the time. And I actually don't hate it, but I don't understand it at all. Like
it's just, it can be done, so maybe let's just do it.
Yeah, I think that's the thought process of a lot of things those days, no lie. But, I mean, I'm glad we both had this one on our list. It is genuinely a great album.
And it's just, like the runtime is 54 minutes 11 seconds.
It's almost perfect. Like, I feel like that's what an album should be,
bro. Yeah, 1 hour just like perfect. It's a perfect one to just like sit down and listen to.
And like all of the songs, none of it feels rushed or like prolonged too much. They all feel just about right.
Yeah. I think like even like the interesting thing about Coldplay is it's a lot of their songs are upbeat without the tempo actually being fast.
Yeah.
You know, like
Clocks is a great example of that.
yeah, clock tempo is not fast. God put a smile upon your face. It's
Yeah.
not fast, but it's an upbeat song.
Yeah.
You know.
It's way more about what they're saying, what he's
Yes.
singing, than the tempo itself.
Yes, and it just is so much due to him just being an absolute powerhouse of a front man.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
vocalist, but also just a front man. Chris Martin is a very like big person.
He is.
You know?
He's a big personality.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, of course, he's gotten into some weird stuff due to that, but I mean, that's what you
He
expect.
named his kid Apple, but
I mean, dope. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's me done for 10. Do you want to talk about it anymore? Because 2, I mean, is a big one on your list.
I personally, I think Chris Martin is arguably the best songwriter of the 21st century. It's. I feel like Coldplay is one of the last bands, if not like the last band, that has so much vast commercial appeal that's actually genuinely
A
like
band.
a band and is good.
Yeah.
You know, one of the last bands that could sell really, really well,
No
and
matter
still,
what they put out.
yeah, and still genuinely just be so good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
They're coming few and far between now. Real bands
yeah,
really playing the music,
yeah,
really that are successful.
very true. And another thing that a lot of people don't like about Coldplay, but I love, is they're so different from album to album. This album is so different from Parachutes,
Yeah.
and it's just their second album,
Mhm.
you know. And then, but you look at Parachutes compared to Ghost Stories, or Parachutes compared to Viva La Vida, it's
You wouldn't recognize it being the same band other than
No.
Chris Martin sounds the same.
exactly, and it just is. It's so cool to see their versatility, and just it really just shows that they love music just
Yeah.
in general.
It's weird. I feel like they're like applauded for that while also being judged for that at the same time. If that even makes
100%.
sense.
No, 100%.
I mean, that just speaks for music critics in general. As I mean, I guess that's anything in general. People are gonna love it, and people are gonna hate it. You're never gonna get it quite right, no matter what you do.
Yeah,
Especially when you have such a huge audience like they do. Like I said earlier, they are one of the biggest bands of the 21st century of the last 20 years, undoubtedly.
very, very true. Very true. Okay, I think I'm gonna go on with number 9 for me now.
Do it. We are
Right.
22 minutes in, and we have done 2, so this
This is gonna be a long.
is going to
one.
be a long one. We apologize for that, but I mean, I feel like if you're listening to this, you're not going to hate us for going on for really long.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Again, number 9. It's
Just say it.
25 by Adele.
Okay, no, I can
At
see
my
that.
9.
That was at one point one of my honorable mentions, which was like a 30 album list. I don't think it quite
Yeah.
cracked, but yeah, I can see it.
Love this album. It's incredible. Adele obviously is like one of the most amazing vocalists
Of all time.
of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time. She has a very like, I mean, I know she has like a writing team that works with her and everything too, but well, I assume that she does. I don't actually know. But every song on here is just so like, there's so much emotion that is going on in it, you know. And it's really like, it's really cool because it's very like, you know, Adele's origins with 19, like it's a very jazzy album. 21 is still jazzy but a little more commercial, and this one is like, I feel like very experimental as far as that goes. Like,
not as experimental as her most recent one.
True, very
But
true.
yes, it is. It's like a good balance between the commercialism of the first two, and I'm not remembering what the number is of her most recent one.
30, I think.
30, yeah.
But like the song "I Miss You" on it, it has like there's sampling going on in that song,
which is crazy for a singer-songwriter.
It's wild. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy, bro. It's so crazy. One thing that is so incredible about this album is melodies. Every single song is a sing-along song.
It is.
Every single one.
Which is amazing that she can capture that in every song on a whole album.
It's so great. When We Were Young is one of the greatest songs ever written.
It's a powerful song.
Oh my gosh, it's
almost... Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
good. It's almost haunting.
Yes.
But in like a good way, if that even makes sense.
Yes.
I consider haunting to be a good quality in a song or a piece of art.
I agree. It's very it's very hard to try and write like Adele, to break a very complex idea down into one phrase in a simple way. You know, it's without it being corny.
Yeah. Or not making sense at all.
Yeah. It's so, like, if you just, like, read the second verse, like, it's just, like, this isn't a song, this is literally someone just, like, talking. And there just happens to be rhymes in there. I was so scared to face my fears. Nobody told me that you'd be here. I swear you moved overseas. That's what you said when you left, you know. That's just like
those are lyrics to a song that just sound like a text message or something.
Yes. It's so crazy to me. The bridge in this song is incredible.
Yeah.
Is incredible.
She usually nails the bridge in most of like her really good songs. She absolutely nails the bridge.
This line in the bridge, it's to close out the bridge. She says, "A part of me keeps holding on just in case it hasn't gone. I guess I still care. Do you still care?"
Oof. Chills, dude.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah.
It's so good. Because it's like, that's how you feel, man.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's so hard to put feelings into words. For everyone. And for it to, like, nail a feeling like that in a few, like, a sentence or two, a bar or two, is amazing.
Especially because this whole song, literally, if you just, like, break it down, is about a split second when she ran into this guy.
Yeah.
And it's just every thought that went through her mind in these few seconds. You know, it's a few seconds that are just expanded into this whole entire song, you know, which is incredible.
And that's how the whole album is.
Yeah. It's so good. Love in the Dark, dude.
Taylor in his feels right now.
Dude, I am, man. I'm almost crying right now thinking about this, man. It's so good. All I Ask, so good. Like, these three songs that I just named are three of the most amazing ballads of all time, and they're on the same album.
Yeah.
You know, like, a good album is, like, extremely fortunate to have one song of this caliber on it.
Yeah.
That's my thing with X and Y with Coldplay, is if Fix You was not on there, it wouldn't be like an amazing album.
That's why I left it off.
Fix You elevates the whole album.
Yeah.
And this has 3 of those on there.
It has 3 Fix Yous, which is crazy.
It's insane. And it's not like I look at the rest of the songs, like Send My Love. Hello's also on this album, which is insane.
I actually don't love Hello. That might be my least favorite song in the whole album, which is
interesting.
Yeah.
It was overplayed
That's a hot take.
A lot.
Yeah,
Overplayed.
I think that might be why.
But like "Send My Love" is not my favorite on this album, but it's still a good song.
Yeah.
It just seems a little bit lackluster
in comparison,
standing next to those other songs.
Which of course, yeah. That's the one thing that's so funny about making such a great album, is that like you could have really great songs that just don't seem great when they're next to all-time songs, you know?
Yeah, very true.
Like to kind of compare it to something like with the LeBron James led Miami Heat of 2010 to 2014, like obviously you see LeBron, right? And you know how amazing he is. I mean, he won 4 straight finals, 2 out of 4 finals MVPs. So that's what you see, right? And you know that Dwayne Wade was there and how amazing he was. And there's the famous picture of the alley-oop, right? And then, but like, one of those like really good songs that doesn't stand up to the great songs is a Chris Bosh on those Miami Heat teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, unless you watch those series, you don't understand how good Chris Bosh was and how important he was in those series. And it's just like the same thing with this album with Adele. Like, I love that song, but I mean, it's not really as good as the other ones.
No. That's very true. It's very true. I think there's a lot of albums that I don't give enough credit because of that. I'm like, I don't know, like,
yeah,
you know,
it's easy to do that.
I almost would have rather an album only have 6 or 7 songs instead of 12 or 14.
Easier to get it right.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible. Hello is another song that's just so conversational and just amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Second verse, the last line in the second verse. It's no secret that both of us are running out of time.
Yeah.
That's something you would just hear in passing in a conversation.
Right.
You know? And it's so good. That's all I'll say about that album. Incredible. Adele, thank you. It's such an amazing project.
Yeah. Talk about another one of the greatest artists of our generation. Adele is definitely up there.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm glad she was included on one of our lists. Jumping to my number 9, and I said Kanye was going to be in here.
Here he is.
Here
How
he is.
many times is he in here?
We probably won't talk about him as much this time. And he is only on here twice. This is the first of 2 inclusions. But this was the album that made me fall in love with Kanye West's music, and it is Graduation.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, man. This was the last Kanye album I took off my list. This was probably sitting around 13 or 14.
Fair enough. And for a long time, this was my favorite Kanye album by far. And like I said, it made me fall in love with his music. I mean, you look at the track list again, there are so many, like Good Morning to start off the album.
Just to start.
Stronger is 3, one of his most famous songs. There are some sleepers in between that are like my favorite songs of the album, but like Good Life is on this album. Can't Tell Me Nothing, which was, I believe, his Grammy-winning single of that year when he released this album. And like those are all huge hits in Kanye West's catalog.
Yeah.
And those aren't even necessarily my favorite songs on this thing. Like, I Wonder is probably my favorite.
Really?
Probably. For a long time, it was one of my favorite songs.
What do you love about it?
The sample is awesome.
It is.
It's amazing. And it's like, it's almost like, it's kind of like 808s in a way, where it's like a little bit more experimental than what the rest of it is. It's like a little bit more jazzy too. It's like, I don't know. I just love it, and I always have. It's really good.
It's really good.
And I remember listening to it the first time, and obviously I did not listen to this when it released in 2007, being an 8-year-old LDS kid. I didn't listen to this for, probably until like 8 years after this.
Yeah.
And just changed the way I looked at rap music even more. And I mean, this is kind of what changed the era of rap a little bit. When you look back at it, Kanye changed it with this
Definitely
album,
a huge shift with this. Yeah.
and even with his previous albums. Just like, I mean, Kanye changed everything from gangster rap to this more modern rap and what
getting
it looks
away
like
from
today.
like all the flexing,
All
which
the
he still does his fair share of.
I mean, that's what you had to do to be successful
Yeah.
to an extent at the time.
lots more vulnerable.
Yeah,
Subject matter's totally different.
and it was something I've always just really vibed with.
The flow of Kanye, especially on this album, and especially on I Wonder, is absurd. His
Oh.
flow is so strange.
It doesn't make any sense.
It makes zero sense.
It's not rap flow.
No, what? Me. Yo, right. It makes zero sense. Bro.
I
But
eat it
it's
up.
Incredible.
I eat it up. And I mean, it may say something about me saying that Kanye West is my favorite rapper of all time. Considering, I mean, he's not really a rapper, but and considering he has 2 on my favorite top 10 albums of all time, but like he changed the way I look at music. And I won't talk about this album too much more because I'll talk about it more later on when I bring up the other album. But like, just absolutely changed the way I look at music and changed my perspective on hip hop and production and all of it, which is, I mean, really profound for me when I think about listening to this album specifically. Like I said, it being the first Kanye album that I really loved.
Yeah, a fantastic album. Production is impeccable.
Yeah.
It's unreal how good the production is on this album.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention, by the way, Flashing Lights, which has one of my favorite Kanye verses of all time.
So good and so simple. That's something that he's extremely good at with his production. Is it's so simple.
Yep.
You know. But yeah, that verse is so good.
It goes so hard.
I know it's been a while.
We hardly talk. I'm doing my thing.
So good, yeah. It's like,
and his, I mean, even that flow is so weird.
It's like,
it's almost like singy, but he's definitely rapping at the same time.
It's
that even
very
makes sense.
odd. It's something only Kanye can do.
Yeah, like I said, I eat it up, bro. I love it. All right, that's all I have to say about Graduation for right now. That's number 9 on my list. To you at your number 8.
Number 8. It's kind of a roller coaster until we get to 5, and then it starts to make sense.
Okay, I'm in for it. I'm here, strapped in.
Number 8, and this has recently become one of my favorites.
Okay.
Like, just within the last year, I've really grown to love this album.
Okay, cool. I have a few of those, so I get that.
It's Harry Styles' Fine Line.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I slept on this man for the longest time, dude. He is an incredible songwriter.
He is. And his voice is amazing.
It's so freaking good, this whole album. It's extremely like warm, I want to say.
Okay.
Starting with the first track, Golden, is like, there's so many tracks on here that just make you feel some type of way, you know, like just make you feel.
That's something he's good at.
Very good at.
Yeah.
Very good at just setting atmosphere. The song Cherry on here is a really freaking sad song, dude.
Yeah, I have that song on my phone. It's a really good song.
But it doesn't sound sad. It
Yeah,
doesn't sound sad, but it feels sad. Even if you didn't know the lyrics, it still feels sad, but it doesn't sound sad.
Right.
You know? He's another very like conversational writer.
Yeah.
Which
That's
I
true.
love. Falling, so good. So good. The line in the chorus, I want to make sure I say it right. So he ends like each phrase. The first time he ends it with, "What if I'm someone I don't want around?"
Ooh. Yeah.
That's so tough, dude.
That is
Like,
real tough. That's a hard pill to swallow.
It is, man. It is. And then the next one he ends with, "What if I'm someone you won't talk about?"
Mm.
And then the last chorus he changes it to, "What if you're someone I just want around?"
Yeah.
That's just so like, it's very, very, very honest writing.
Yeah, it really is.
Incredible album. Keep going down. She is a Pink Floyd song that they just never recorded.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
The way it's not really.
Oh.
It's just that's.
You're
that's
saying that it sounds like
how it sounds. Yes.
Gotcha.
From the way that the lyrics are written, the chord progressions that they use, the bass line on that is so freaking. It's all Floyd, dude, and it's amazing. I'm here for it. And then the last song on the album, "Fine Line," it's a really, really good song up until the outro, and then the outro's amazing. It's all of the chord changes are like they're like really syncopated and not where you would feel that they should be, and it just takes you through so much like emotion while you're listening to that outro. You're just like, I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know how I'm supposed to be feeling right now, but because I'm feeling all of it. Like, it's so good. I love this album. I could talk about this album a lot, but that's pretty much all I'm gonna say for now.
Oh, that's dope. I'm kind of a late arriver to the Harry Styles bandwagon in a way, where I always really liked "Sign of the Times," which is his first like single after he went solo after One Direction. But I love that song. We talked about that earlier today.
Yeah.
And there are like a few songs on there that I really, really enjoy. On this album specifically, "Fine Line." But I've never really listened to it all the way through. Never really been into Harry Styles until it's just recent, in the last 2 months, when he released Harry's House, where I've actually been listening to him more, and I really enjoy him as well.
He's
for who he is now.
Yeah, another person who just loves making good music.
Yeah, and you could tell.
Yeah,
it's so awesome when you can tell that people just really enjoy music.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, Tanner, on to your 8.
Yeah, this moves me to 8, and I am also pulling in with a relatively within the last year album released. And that is "Happier Than Ever."
Whoa.
Billie Eilish.
Whoa.
I thought for sure that would be like top 5.
Not top 5. We are here at 8. And yes, Lexi is here listening, if you did hear her. She didn't want to participate.
Like a jerk.
Well, I will say, I was not told to put together.
No, that's
top
true.
10 albums.
We totally just chucked Lex under the bus on that.
Yeah,
one.
sorry about that.
But stay tuned for Lex on our next podcast, though, where we'll be reviewing Post Malone's album, 24 Karat Toothache.
Posty. Yeah. Sorry to throw you under the bus like that, because it's true. I took quite a bit of time in preparing my list, and I had to go do the same. So, not fair of me to do that. Anyway, to "Happier Than Ever." This album released less than a year ago. We're talking July of 2021. This is her third full-length studio album, and Billie is relatively new on the music scene. And as from your reaction, I can tell that you're surprised it's even on here.
I am. I am.
And honestly, I was too. Because I didn't mention this before, but how I kind of went about making my list is I went through my entire Apple Music catalog of everything that I have, and I just wrote down all of the albums that I thought could be considered. And when I got to this, I was like, man, I love every single track on this album.
Wow.
And some of them I like are some of my favorite songs ever, possibly. which seems crazy.
Which ones?
Happier Than Ever itself, the title track, I
Incredible.
absolutely adore.
Incredible.
The first like 5, so Getting Older, I Didn't Change My Number, Billy Bossa Nova, My Future, and Oxytocin. Dude, I remember listening. So when I listened to this album for the first time, I was like, I liked Billy after her first one. You know, When We All Go to Sleep, Where Do We Go?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a good album. She won literally everything you could win for that album, and she like arrived on the scene. But I was like, this is next level in my opinion. The production is even better.
Yeah,
from
huge
Phineas.
shout out to her brother Phineas.
Phineas is amazing.
They are a duo. It's not like
yeah, for sure. They come
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And I should have probably mentioned his name as well because he is just as much a part of this as Billy is. But like I listened to those 5 tracks and I stopped. I was like, I don't know if I should be feeling like I should love this as much as I do. Because it's like, it's all, I mean, Billy in general is just like sad most of the time. And maybe it speaks a little bit to how I was feeling myself at the time listening about it.
Yeah.
But like just the entire thing, and Lexi feels the same way probably. I mean, we've listened to this album, I can't even comprehend how many times. Like there would be Saturdays, like doing chores and stuff, where we just listen to it on repeat.
Really?
Like 5 times in a row, the entire track list.
That's awesome.
That's how much I love this album. And part of it is like those memories with my wife, just listening to it and both of us enjoying it so much. And she was the one that introduced me to Billy in general way back when for Ocean Eyes. But I mean, like I am in my feels every single time Happier Than Ever turns on, and I am yelling the words.
It's so good.
It is so good. It is so powerful. The switch up in between is like from the slow, like kind of melodic, almost like lullaby type vibe from the first half into the insane power ballad, amped guitars and super loud, vulgar second half of the song.
Is wild. It's a wild contrast.
It is a wild
so
song.
Good.
And it's like so accurate with like, I mean, I don't want to speak like for obviously the artist who wrote it, but like for me it speaks so much like to how like emotions actually are. And I think that's a lot of what this album is for Billie, is her talking about her emotions and things that she hasn't like let herself deal with. And part of it may also be that like she's really close in age to us. Like, I mean, she's younger than us, Billie herself. But like just talking about stuff that I kind of relate to, like a lot of it. And from a woman's perspective as well, which is super powerful and something that I'm trying to be more aware of in general. And like, man, it sounds like I really love this album because I really do. And I never thought I would say that.
And that's why I'm surprised it's not your top 5.
And it's because my top 5 are even more influential to me. But
it's an amazing album. I listened to this album for the first time coming back from Lake Powell, and the whole album I was loving and like really liking. Where it turned the corner for me though is the track Overheated. I was like, what is this?
No, it does turn a corner at Overheated, you're right.
It was like, the track Overheated itself is like, if it reminds me a lot of a Black Eyed Peas song, actually.
That's true.
The production of it. The like actual pattern of that like really gritty like synth
aggressive
bass, like the that's like very Will.i.am, like extremely Will.i.am.
That's true. I never thought about that.
With just so much on top of it though.
The layering on all of these are just amazing.
So crazy. And it's, you have that like, just like from a production standpoint, you have that very like empty, like very like forward and to the front on that synth bass, and then all of the other elements of the production, a lot of the other elements have a lot of reverb on it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Usually I don't like really love reverb, but it's used so tactfully here on different songs, like on NDA as well.
So good.
NDA is so cool.
It's wild, bro.
And it's like I've never thought, like, I don't even know how to like describe what the genre is of this album. Alternative rock, singer-songwriter, punk.
It is. I'm gonna call it space punk.
Space punk. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Boom.
And I think that's a very good representation of it, actually. But like, I can't quite put to words what I love so much about it, because there is a lot of variety on this album as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Male Fantasy at the
Let's
very
talk
end
about that song for a minute, bro.
is an amazing song. So good, and it's like not at all like NDA or Overheated.
Dude, it's
like,
it's totally different.
Totally different style
different.
of song, and it fits together like very well on the same album.
That second verse when she's just like, man, I had a friend and we were really close friends, and now we don't even freaking talk to each other because that's just how life is.
Yep, you relate to it so hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, just her voice. Talk about female artist's voice. She is up there for me. I love her voice.
Yeah.
So much.
Very unique and not like annoyingly so.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting and different than anything I've ever really heard before.
Yeah,
But-
awesome album. Whole project is incredible.
Yeah.
This is an album that I have no issue with how many tracks are on it.
Yeah, I know, me too. And 16 is a lot.
Yeah.
16 is a heavy. I mean, what is it, like an hour and a half?
No,
runtime?
the runtime is actually only 56
Oh, it's only
minutes.
56 minutes. I mean, just like we talked about with
Mhm.
Russian Blood to the Head, right around that hour mark is the sweet spot.
Yep. Actually, okay, wait. Not necessarily Overheated was the turning point. Not my responsibility. Right before that, when she's just talking, I'm like,
Powerful.
what is happening?
Which Overheated is like her response to
Yes.
that track when
Yeah.
she first released it.
So good.
I mean, she's a badass.
She is. Billy the Badass.
Okay,
On to number 7 then.
on to 7.
Gosh. This is the last one I'm like kind of embarrassed by.
It's okay. Don't be embarrassed. You like what you like.
Indeed I do. At number 7, this was released in 2018.
Okay.
It's Malibu Nights by Lainey.
No comment yet. Go ahead.
No comment is totally fine. I'm gonna, before I talk about the album itself, I'm gonna say why I love it so much.
Okay.
So, for any of you who don't know, so when you serve, like, while I was on a mission, we weren't allowed to, one of the rules was we weren't really allowed to listen to music that wasn't of a religious nature of some sort. Full disclosure, your boy didn't follow that rule very closely. I won't even lie.
Hey, he's out here.
Out here, I needed that music on the mission. I'm sorry. But something that, like, cause it's still not the same, cause you're always kind of like, anytime you listen to it, you're kind of looking over your shoulder, like,
Yeah.
you
Not
know.
fully enjoying it.
And it's not like I was out there listening to like anything crazy, but just like, you know, nice chill, like music, like, you know what I mean? This was the first album that I listened to when I got back from my mission. This was the first album that like I sat down and listened to the whole thing. I heard Malibu Nights while I was in a mall there, and I was like,
Gotcha.
I don't know what this is, but it's amazing. And I came home and had to find like that song and who it was by and everything, you know. And right when I got back, like I got back kind of a weird time. It was November. Well, I got back end of October, so like all of November and December. it was right in the middle of a school semester, so anyone that I was kind of friends with before was in school and like busy. I had started a new job. I didn't know anybody that was working there. I was living up in Syracuse. I didn't know anybody there.
Yeah.
I would just drive around and listen to this album. Like, literally just by myself, I would just drive around and listen to it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so this song, this album, like, just has grown to mean a lot to me.
Okay.
I know that it's very unimpressive as an album, but it has just grown to mean, like, a lot to me.
Well, that's powerful. And that's one nice thing about this being our favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much, and I wish I would have touched on this at the beginning as well, because there's so much other than just it being a good album that goes into us liking these albums, right? There's
Very true.
The nostalgia factor, which is huge in some of my later picks. And then like you said, the experiences and the memories that formulate for you when you think about these albums. So, I mean,
very true.
Super powerful for an album to mean that much to you, right, in a time where there's a lot of unknowns for you.
It's a really, really good feel. It's another, like, kind of puts you in your feels sort of album. Really synthy again, which is awesome.
You do love your synths.
I do love my synths, bro. Last song on the album, Malibu Nights, is that song is an incredible song. It's a really, really good song, dude. But I'm not really gonna talk about this album a lot. That's just why I love the album. It's not. It doesn't blow me away, production or lyrically or vocally or anything. That's just why I love the album a lot.
No, that's really cool. I said no comment initially just because I am not huge on Lainey.
I'm not either. All of their other projects I've listened through. So the album right after this that they released, Mama's Boy, there's a handful of songs, like 3 songs on that album, out of 14 songs that I like. And yeah, I don't know. I don't love them as a band, but yeah, it's just something about the album.
No, that's cool. No judgment at all for me because of your reasoning. You backed it up.
Appreciate it.
That was your 7, right? Am I in the right place?
Yes, that was my 7.
On to 7 for me. This is not an album that meant anything to me up until the last year.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that it's from the last year. It was released 29 years before I was born.
29 years?
29 years before I was born.
I'm about math, let's say.
So that would mean it was released in 1970.
I'm gonna guess Zeppelin or Beatles on this one.
It's the Beatles, yep. It is Let It Be, the final studio album by the band known as the Beatles.
The Beatles.
And, really strangely, going back to kind of the Billy thing, I started like really getting into the album at a time where, I feel like a lot of things were changing for me. With Beckham being born, and kind of gearing up towards being a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of different life changes, and the documentary series released for kind of the production around this album, what was going on with the Beatles, produced by Peter Jackson, directed by Peter Jackson, of just footage that was filmed for an actual Beatles film at the time.
And just sat on forever.
Yeah, just sat in archives, nothing being done with it. And
gosh, can you imagine if there was like a flood or something, like the warehouse was in flooded and just
man, break my heart thinking about it. That is called Get Back, which is the final track on Let It Be itself. But that documentary series, like, completely, so taking a step back, I had listened, of course, everyone hears the Beatles. What am I saying?
You lost me.
Everyone listens to the Beatles growing up, right? You're always told this is the greatest band of all time, most famous. They have tons and tons and tons of hits, right? Completely changed modern music. They are the starting point and the gold standard for music, pretty much.
For sure.
And so I kind of feel corny putting an album of theirs on my top 10, and especially being I've only really loved this album for like 8 months, I don't know, or something like that. But like watching the production that these guys put into making this album and songs on it, and just watching the four of them being their own personalities and like relating to them almost in certain ways, and like just things that I never like these were real people. And just watching like the greatest band of all time make an album, and then listening to it and absolutely realizing how much I love like 11 out of 12 tracks on this thing, it's pretty amazing. And of course it is some of the greatest music ever made, in my opinion.
Right.
And that helps in enjoying it, but I just absolutely love it, and the Beatles in general have become one of my favorite bands. And this just happens to be my favorite album of theirs for that reason, and also just all of the songs on it.
It's a great album. I have my own personal issues with the Beatles.
Fair enough.
It's just not necessarily my vibe. Most of their stuff.
I get that.
But there are some incredible songs. Let It Be, obviously, amazing. Across the Universe, amazing.
Yep.
The Long and Winding Road,
amazing.
freaking incredible.
Oh.
Get Back is one of the hardest songs I've ever heard.
Get Back is amazing too.
It's really, and see, watching Paul McCartney just write it.
Yeah.
In that documentary is like,
I know, he just like, yeah, I had a dream. And that's like the basis of him writing one of the most famous songs of all time.
wild.
Just geniuses at work.
Out of this world. And the crazy thing is, it's just like, oh, just a couple kids who went to high school together.
Yeah. Amazing. Good old Liverpool. And that's funny, like you didn't even mention my favorite song on Let It Be is Dig a Pony.
See, I have no idea what that song is.
And I mean, that's okay. And that's like probably what would be considered deep cut if you were to, like, for Beatles fans.
Right.
And this wasn't like music that I really loved. Like, obviously the hits are the hits, and they're like just pop music in general. But like, Dig a Pony is not that, and it's my favorite song on this album. And I mean, I don't really know what it is. It was like kind of, it's more experimental a little bit. John Lennon, but I mean, it just really speaks to me, and my tastes in music have changed a lot. I mean, since the last time I talked about my favorite albums over the last few years, and this is a perfect example of that, and how much how much more I appreciate what music was like at that time.
For sure.
It's just as powerful while being very different from what we get today.
Very nice.
Yep, that's all I have for that.
Solid pick.
Thank you.
Number 6, we're going to start making a little bit more sense now.
Right.
This one is still a little...
Out there?
I think just unexpected.
Fair enough.
Number 6, 2009, Brand New Eyes by Paramore.
Okay. Interesting.
Love this album. So this was the first CD I owned.
Really?
I think
Wow.
Eliza, my sister, gave it to me for my birthday or something like that. Incredible album. Have you listened through this album?
I don't know if I have.
It's wild.
Show me the album art real quick.
It's the butterfly
Okay.
pin.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite songs ever is on this album.
Which one?
You know.
Only Exception?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Only Exception.
It's so good. It's so freaking good. Haley Williams is a very underrated vocalist with psychotic range.
Yeah.
I love this album. I love the way it feels. It's very extremely aggressive at times, and then very melancholy and soft and extremely touching at other times. Misguided Ghosts is incredible. If you don't know the song, definitely listen to it.
Bet.
But yeah, great song. And the album is incredible. It's very the writing is very much like the writing of that time.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is fair.
But I still love it though. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this album other than it's just, again, like it was the first CD I owned, and anytime a song from this album comes up on shuffle, I have to just go and listen to the album from beginning to end.
I get that. Yeah.
It's so like I can't even tell you how many times I've listened to this album all the way through. But Only Exception, obviously amazing.
Yeah.
Misguided Ghosts and All I Wanted is amazing. Ignorance was another really big one from that. Break by Boring Break is one of my personal favorites from the album, though. Super slept on song.
Okay.
But
yeah, I'm not as familiar with this one. I do enjoy Paramore though. Not something I'm super knowledgeable in. But
Paramore do be hitting a little different at times.
yeah, I get that.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that one.
Cool. To my number 6, this is probably my most questionable inclusion.
And it's 6. Wow.
It's at 6.
Wow.
You won't be surprised to hear me say what it is, but for people listening in the future and that don't know this, be like, what? What are you talking about? Because it is a soundtrack.
Ah.
It is Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Yeah. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, especially when I've talked about how much I love some of the previous albums that we've already talked about. But when I talk about hitting that nostalgia, nothing hits it stronger than listening to these songs. For example, Battle of the Heroes. But I mean, something about it makes me emotional every time.
Yeah, it's so odd. It shouldn't, because it's freaking Star Wars.
It's Star Wars and it's nerdy, and there's no reason it should make me feel some type of way, but it does.
Dude, one song literally tears, actual tears listening to this song.
Padme's Ruminations?
Oh my gosh,
I know.
dude.
Yeah,
she's holding the necklace, bro. She's so holding the necklace that he made for him. He was just a little freaking slave kid on Tatooine, and now he's Vader, bro.
I know. And say what you want about the film. We've talked about it briefly in a previous episode, but this film meant a lot to me growing up.
1,000%.
And just the music, and then also video games that I played growing up that had the music, and hitting that nostalgia factor. And this is an album, I mean, this probably sounds ridiculous, but I listen to this at least once a week, just all the way through.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is so good.
If you were a kid growing up in the early 2000s in America, this movie was literally a personality trait.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And still a very huge,
cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. I can't remember where in the crap I was, but they had a toy from this movie, and it sent me for a freaking loop, dude. Just like seeing this toy, I was like, holy
Sent you back
crap,
to seeing
dude.
it.
Yeah, just like drooling over it in Target,
Yeah.
just like praying to God that my parents would buy this toy for me because it was so sick, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I think a lot of I've said this to a lot of people. Think about Star Wars and just you're gonna go and watch A New Hope. It's a brand new movie. No one knows what the hell this is.
Yeah.
You're sitting in theaters, and maybe a few trailers play, and it's like it's an unknown thing. I can't imagine there being like too much crazy hype around the movie when it first came out.
There's
It was
no way,
the
right?
first film was super low budget and everything.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, and the first impression that you get of the Star Wars universe, every single person's first impression of the Star Wars universe. And it's
the crawl.
floating. It's floating words, bro.
Yeah.
And he just made floating words look like the freaking coolest thing that has ever happened.
Ever.
It's with just that, like just with music.
It's stunning.
It's incredible. All of the music that he's done throughout all of those films is fantastic.
Yeah. John Williams knocked that out of the park.
1000%.
As he has always done his entire career.
Yeah.
And another reason this is so high is this is the first film, Revenge of the Sith, that I remember seeing in theaters. Like, vividly.
Oh.
It's the only film I remember from my early life, like, actually seeing, and I remember watching moments in theaters. And I would have only been, like, 6 at the time. Which is, I mean, it's kind of dark for a 6-year-old when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I mean, but, I mean, Star Wars, man. Revenge of the Sith specifically. And we don't need to talk too much about track to track because it's kind of different.
Yeah.
But something I absolutely love. And something that Taylor and I enjoy together.
Well done. Love that pick.
Thank
It's
you.
a great one.
That was 6 for me.
So we're on to 5 now? Or do you have anything else to say about that? Or
Nope, I'm good. Let's go on to 5.
Okay.
As we're at our halfway point, thank you for listening. We are an hour 12 in. This may be part 1, part 2 type 5, where I post the first one for the first 5.
good call.
So if it ends here, I guess you're just gonna have to tune back in for the next one. But we'll see. We might keep talking.
The rest of my picks aren't half as lame, so that'll be good.
Yeah.